Black single mom saves lost little girl and her father in a blizzard. Then he changes their life. The blizzard came in fast like a curtain of white. It was late evening, and the small mountain town seemed to shrink under the thick snow. Street lights glowed like small moons. Wind pushed hard against houses and trees. The radio kept repeating the same warning: stay inside, do not travel, emergency response is delayed. Maya Johnson listened to the message while she drove her old SUV down a side street near the park. Her wipers worked hard, knocking ice away, then struggling again as the glass glazed over. She was tired after her shift at the clinic, but her mind stayed calm and steady. She was a nursing assistant, used to long days, used to helping people feel safe. She just wanted to get home to her son, Amir, who was with their neighbor, Miss Lopez, until she returned. In the back of the SUV, she kept blankets, a first aid kit, a small shovel, a coil of bright orange rope, a reflective triangle, a flashlight, extra batteries, hand warmers, and a bottle of water wrapped in a towel to keep it from freezing. She was proud of this kit. She had built it piece by piece, buying one item each month when money allowed. Every time she added something new, she told Amir why it mattered. Prepared is better than scared, she always said. Tonight, as snow pushed in heavy waves across the road, her kit felt like a small promise that things could be okay. Her phone buzzed with a text from Miss Lopez: Amir is doing homework. We are fine. Take your time. Maya smiled and typed back a short thank you at a stop sign. She could barely see the park through the white air, just a line of shadow where the fence should be. The tires slipped once, then gripped again. She breathed out slow. Almost home, she thought. Almost there. Then she saw it. Right in the weak glow of her headlights, there was a small pink mitten sitting on top of the snow like a flower. It looked wrong, too bright, and too still in all that white. She slowed down even more. A shiver went up her arms, not from the cold but from worry. She pulled the SUV to the curb, turned on the hazard lights, and peered through the windshield. The wind made the snow dance and twist. She saw nothing else. She was about to move on when a faint sound reached her ears. It might have been the wind. It might have been a cry. She turned off the radio and listened with her hand on the key. There it was again, soft and thin, like a scared bird. She opened her door, and the wind rushed in, cold and sharp. She grabbed her flashlight, stepped down, and planted her boots deep into the snow. Hello, she called out, but the wind pulled the word away. She walked toward the mitten, her light cutting a narrow path. Another small sound, closer this time, came from the bench half buried in snow near the fence line. The beam of her flashlight found a little face, pale and wet with melting flakes. The child was huddled against the bench, arms wrapped around herself, a thin hat pulled crooked over her ears. Her coat was zipped, but a sleeve gaped, and the other mitten was missing. She blinked at Maya, not sure if she was seeing a person or a light. Hey there, Maya said softly, keeping her voice warm and steady. I'm here. You're safe now. The girl did not answer right away. Her teeth chattered. Her small shoulders shook in quick, jerky movements. Maya knelt beside her, careful and calm. She knew what to check, and she did it without hurry. The child's skin was very cool. Her hands were clumsy when they tried to reach for the flashlight. Her words, when they came, were slow and simple. These were signs that the cold was getting inside, deeper than the skin. What's your name? Maya asked. Lily, the girl said, the sound breaking like thin ice. Okay, Lily, Maya said. My name is Maya. We're going to get you warm. She took off her gloves and touched Lily's neck and cheeks. Cold, but not icy. She looked at her lips. They were pale, but not blue. Can you walk with me to my car? It's right there. Lily nodded, but when she tried to stand, Her knees wobbled. Maya slid her arms under Lily and lifted her, slow and strong, like she would lift her own son when he fell asleep on the couch. "You're doing great," Maya said. The wind hit them as they crossed the few steps to the SUV, as if the weather wanted to push them back. Maya set Lily in the front passenger seat and closed the door to keep the heat inside. She climbed into the driver's seat and cranked the heat all the way up. She pulled a thick blanket from the back seat and wrapped it around Lily, tucking it under her chin. Then she reached for a small insulated mug she kept in the cup holder. The water inside was warm, not hot. She held it to Lily's lips. "Small sips," she said. "Just little sips." Lily drank and let out a soft, shaky sigh. "My dad," she whispered. "He went to get help. He said he would be right back." Maya kept her voice gentle. "How long ago?" Lily thought hard, eyes shifting as if she was trying to find time in the snow. "I don't know. It got so white. I got scared. I waited." She pressed her mittenless hand against the blanket and looked at the fog on the window. Maya's fingers moved quickly now. She grabbed a chemical hand warmer from the kit and broke it open, shaking it to heat it up. She slipped it inside the blanket where it could warm Lily's core. She took off Lily's wet hat and replaced it with a dry beanie from the kit. She rubbed Lily's hands with her own palms, creating a little friction, a little heat. Not too fast, not too hard. She did not want to hurt numb skin. She spoke softly as she worked. "You did a brave thing by waiting. You did the right thing." When Lily had color back in her cheeks, Maya picked up her phone and dialed 911. "Emergency services," said a tired voice. "What is your location?" Maya gave the street name, the cross street, and the landmarks as clearly as she could. She explained the situation in short, calm sentences: a young child found in the snow, father went to look for help, whiteout conditions, vehicle safely parked with hazards on, child warmed and stable now. The dispatcher listened, asked questions, then spoke the words Maya feared. Response times were very slow. Roads were closing. Plows were delayed. Could she stay with the child and wait? Maya looked at Lily, at her big eyes and small hands bundled under the blanket. "What was your dad wearing?" Maya asked after she hung up. "A dark jacket," Lily said. "He went that way." She pointed past the fence, toward a cluster of trees she called the Big Pine. The wind howled against the SUV. The blizzard was not easing. Every minute mattered. Hypothermia was about time, not just temperature. The longer a person stayed in the cold, the more the cold took. Maya thought about Amir waiting for her at home. She thought about Miss Lopez, who would stay with him no matter how late it got. She thought about the simple fact that she was here, that she had warm air blasting from the vents, blankets in the back, and a rope strong enough to pull weight. She also thought about risk. If she left the car, even for a short time, she would be in the storm. But if Lily's father was close and getting weaker, those minutes mattered. She knew what to do for a person who was very cold. She had done it before at the clinic. But she needed to find him first. She turned to Lily. "I am going to look for your dad," she said in a clear, steady voice. "I am not going far. I will stay connected to the car the whole time." Lily swallowed and gripped the blanket. "Promise." Maya felt the heavy shape of the promise she was about to make. "Promise," she said. "I will be careful. I will come back." She reached into the back and pulled out the coil of orange rope. She tied one end to the inner door handle of the SUV, looping it twice and making a firm knot she could trust even with gloves on. She looped the other end around her waist and clipped it back to itself with a small carabiner. The rope felt solid in her hands. It would guide her. It would stop her from wandering off into the white. She checked the knot again. She placed a second blanket over Lily's legs, left the water within reach, and showed her how to press the button to call if the phone slipped out of place. She turned the heater to a steady, strong flow and moved the vents so warm air would reach Lily's chest and hands. Her fingers hovered over her phone. She called Miss Lopez and explained in a few quick words that she had found a child in the snow and that she needed to look for the child's father while staying tied to the car. Miss Lopez said she would keep Amir calm, make him hot cocoa, and pray. "You are doing the right thing," Miss Lopez said. It helped to hear those words. It helped to know someone else knew what was happening. The wind shook the SUV again. Maya could feel the engines hum under her feet, a steady heartbeat in metal and fuel. She could also feel the pull in her chest that came every time she had to choose in an emergency. She was used to choosing at the clinic. Now she had to do it out here, with the sky pouring white. She put on her thickest coat and zipped it high. She pulled a scarf up over her mouth and nose. She put the flashlight in her left hand and kept her right hand on the rope. She tested the line by leaning away from the car. It held firm. "Lily," she said, bending so the girl could see her eyes, "I will follow the fence you showed me. I will listen for your father. If I find him, I will bring him back. If I do not find him right away, I will come back to you and try again. You are safe in here. The car is warm. The lights are on. I tied myself to this door, and that means the car will guide me back." Lily nodded. Her breathing had slowed. Her eyes were still wet, but they were more steady now. "Thank you," she whispered. "Please find him." Maya gave her a small, confident smile. She wanted Lily to borrow her calm. She opened the door, and the wind pushed in again, but the rope stayed strong and bright against the white. She stepped out, pulled the door closed behind her, and felt the world become cold and loud. Snowflakes hit her cheeks and melted in a sting. The beam of her flashlight reached only a short distance before the storm seemed to swallow it. She felt the rope at her waist, a firm hand on her back guiding her toward the fence. She moved slow, planting each step so she would not slip. The rope slid over her glove, a line from the warm light of the SUV to the white world ahead. She aimed the flashlight low, looking for shapes, for footprints, for anything that would tell a story in the snow. She could hear only the wind and the small sound of the rope moving against her coat. Behind her, the SUV's hazard lights blinked in a steady rhythm. In front of her, the fence rose, rimmed with ice. She placed her free hand on the cold metal and turned toward the trees Lily had called the big pine. For a moment she closed her eyes and breathed in and out, slow and counted, the way she taught Amir when he felt nervous before a test. One breath in. One breath out. She opened her eyes and took another step. Then another. She became a moving point of light in a field of white, a careful line between safety and need. The rope tugged once as the wind shifted, and she tightened her grip. She kept going. The wind pressed against Maya like a living thing as she moved along the fence. Snow spun in fast circles and stuck to the metal links. Her flashlight made a narrow cone, bright for a few feet and then swallowed by white. The rope at her waist felt like a steady hand, a reminder that the warm SUV and the small child were right behind her. She kept one gloved hand sliding along the fence so she would not drift. Every few steps, she paused and listened, trying to hear anything besides the storm's howl. For a moment, there was only the rush of wind and the scratch of ice against her coat. Then she thought she heard a low sound, like a sigh or a moan, carried in pieces between gusts. She held her breath. There it was again, to her right, past a mound of snow that looked like a small drifted hill. She edged toward it, testing each step. The ground dipped suddenly and her boot slid. She caught herself with the fence, heart thumping, and angled her light down into the dip. A shape lay half buried at the bottom, a dark jacket crusted with snow. One arm stuck out at a strange angle, hand bare and red at the fingertips. The face was turned away, pressed partly into the snow. Maya's training rose up inside her like a script she had practiced many times: check for danger, check response, check breathing. She crouched carefully, knees low, and brushed snow from the man's mouth and nose. "Sir," she said, voice calm and clear over the wind, "I'm here to help." The man made a faint sound, a tired exhale, but did not fully turn. She slipped 2 fingers to the side of his neck. There a slow pulse, steady but weak. She watched his chest. Shallow breaths, spaced out. His jaw looked tight. She swept her light over his body. The jacket was zipped, but the collar gaped. His hat was nearby, blown off and half filled with snow. His jeans were wet up to the knees. She needed to get him out of the ditch and away from the wind. She also needed to move him gently and keep his head in line with his body. "Sir, my name is Maya," she said, bringing her mouth closer to his ear so he could hear. "Your little girl is safe in my warm car. I'm going to bring you there now." Sometimes the mind listens even when the body is slow. The man's fingers twitched at the word girl. "Good," she thought. "Stay with me." She unclipped the rope at her waist and reclipped it so she could keep one hand on it while she worked. She took her scarf and tucked it around his neck to block some wind. Then she slid her arms under his shoulders from behind, hugging him close so his head stayed steady, and lifted inch by inch until he could sit. He groaned and tried to help but had little strength. "Easy," she said. "Small moves. We go slow." The ditch lip rose like a small wall, and snow kept falling into it, making the slope slippery. She set the flashlight on the ground pointing up, then used the bright orange rope as a guide, one end tied to the SUV, the line running straight past the fence. She clipped a spare carabiner at the middle of the rope, looped it through the man's belt, and tested it with a tug. It held. "All right, sir," she said, firm and kind. "When I pull, I want you to think of standing, even if your legs feel heavy. I will do most of the work." She dug her boots into the trench side, leaned back with her weight, and pulled. The rope tightened. The man's body moved an inch, then another. She stopped, caught her breath, and pulled again. The wind pushed her sideways, but the fence and the rope steadied her. The first try brought his hips up to the edge. The second try got one knee over the lip. "Good," she said, almost like she would to her own child when trying something hard. "You are doing well." At the top, she wrapped an arm around his chest and rested his back against the fence. She picked up the flashlight and checked his face. His lips were pale, not blue. His eyelids fluttered. He was shaking now, which was actually a good sign. His body was trying to warm itself. "We are going to walk," she said. "Small steps, together." She lifted his lost hat from the snow, shook it out, and pulled it snug over his head. Then she placed his bare hand under his jacket against his stomach and closed the jacket tight. They moved along the fence, one careful step at a time. Maya kept one hand on the rope and one hand on the man's elbow. He stumbled once and leaned on her hard. She set her feet wide and held him up until he found balance again. The hazard lights from the SUV blinked like 2 orange eyes through the white, a steady beat that guided them closer. Every few steps, she spoke simple words in a steady rhythm: "Almost there. Warm car. Lily is safe. You are safe." The last yards felt long, like the snow had stretched them. When they reached the SUV, Maya opened the door and a wave of hot air rolled out. Lily's eyes were huge and wet when she saw them. "Dad," she cried, voice breaking with relief. The man tried to smile, his face moved slow, but the feeling was clear. "Lily," he whispered. Maya helped him into the back seat, pulled the second blanket over him, and lifted his wet feet onto a folded coat so they were off the cold floor. She moved quickly now but stayed gentle. She took off his wet gloves, only one remained, and placed both hands under the blanket in his armpits where warm air could reach them. She handed Lily another warm pack and helped her slide it near his chest, over the layers but clear of bare skin. We warm the center first, she told Lily softly, both to teach and to calm. Then the hands and feet will follow. Maya turned the heat to a strong flow and angled the vents toward the back. She checked the man's breathing again. Slow but steady. His shivering grew stronger, which meant his body was waking up from the deep cold. Can you tell me your name? She asked. Eric, he said through clattering teeth. Eric, I'm Maya, she said. You're safe. We'll keep you warm and wait for help. She called 911 and gave the update: adult male found in a ditch, responsive but cold, now inside a heated vehicle, child present and stable, exact cross streets, hazards on. The dispatcher sounded relieved to have a firm location. She warned that plows were moving, but ambulances were still slow. Stay where you are, the dispatcher said. We have your hazard lights on the list. A plow will try to reach your road. While they waited, Maya kept Eric talking in small, easy questions. How old is Lily? F5. What's her favorite winter snack? Marshmallows, he said, and Lily made a small giggle in the front seat, a sound of color in the gray storm. What were you doing at the park? Sledding, he answered, eyes closing for a second. I thought we had more time before it got bad. He opened his eyes again with effort and looked at Maya. Thank you. The two words were simple and clear. Maya nodded and watched for any worrying signs: confusion, no shiver, very slow breath. She counted breaths quietly and checked the color in his face. She slipped off his wet outer layers under the blanket, keeping him covered so the heat stayed trapped. She asked Lily to talk about her favorite cartoon and the snowman they had planned to build. Every bit of steady, normal talk helped pull Eric toward alertness and kept Lily from walking back into fear. A new sound cut through the wind: the low, grinding push of a snow plow. The bright blade appeared at the end of the block like a metal sunrise, sending a wave of snow to the side. The truck slowed when it saw the hazard lights, and then it stopped with a hiss. The driver peered out and raised a hand. Maya opened her door and flashed the light in brief signals. The driver climbed down, careful on the icy step, and came close enough to hear. Maya explained in a few tight sentences. He nodded, went back to the cab, and radioed the situation to dispatch with the exact block and house numbers. Minutes later, the plow angled to clear a wide space beside the SUV so an ambulance could reach them. The driver returned with a heavy blanket from his cab and a small thermos of warm water. For you, he said to Maya, noticing her wet scarf and the snow crusting her shoulders. She took a sip and felt warmth sink into her chest. Thank you, she said. Please be careful. He tipped his head and went back to the truck, keeping the lights flashing so their spot was easy to find. They waited together inside the little island of heat. Lily climbed carefully into the back for a minute to hold her father's hand under the blanket. I was scared, she said. Me too, Eric admitted, the honesty gentle and soft. But we're okay now. He looked at Maya, and his eyes were clearer. You found me, he said. You didn't walk past. She shook her head. I saw a mitten, she answered. And I heard someone who needed help. The ambulance came at last, its lights a soft blur in the snow, siren off to keep noise low in the storm. Two medics stepped out, moving sure and quick. They listened as Maya explained what she had done and what she had seen: the ditch, the shivering, the breathing rate, the careful warming. The medics thanked her for the clear report. They slid a warm, padded sheet under Eric and moved him onto a stretcher without jerking or bending. They covered him with more layers, placed a gentle mask to give moist, warm oxygen, and took his temperature. One of them smiled at Lily. You did a brave job helping, she said. Can we ride with him? Lily asked, looking from her dad to the medic and then to Maya. The medic nodded. We have a spot, she said. She glanced at Maya. You okay to follow? Maya looked at her rope tied to the door, the blankets, the kit. She looked at the snow still driving down. She thought about Amir and Miss Lopez. Then she nodded. I will drive behind you slowly, she said. I have a neighbor with my son. He is safe. The medics secured Eric in the ambulance and lifted Lily into a seat near his head. The plow cleared a path in front of the ambulance and then turned to lead the way. Maya untied the rope, coiled it quickly, and stowed the kit. She took one deep breath, a long exhale, and started the SUV. The road felt less like a trap now and more like a tunnel cut open for them. She pulled in behind the ambulance, hazards blinking, headlights low, keeping a careful distance as they moved. At the clinic, warm light flooded the bay as the doors slid open. Nurses came with calm voices and good hands. Maya gave her final details to the triage nurse: time found, first temperature reading, how long he had been in the car, the steps she took. The nurse wrote it down and thanked her. You likely helped him avoid serious harm, she said. You did the right things. Maya stepped aside then, letting the team do their work. She watched through the glass as Lily pressed her small hand to her father's blanket and then looked back at Maya with a look that was part smile, part relief, and part wonder. The storm still roared outside, but in that bright hallway, the sound felt distant, like a story told about a place far away. Maya pulled out her phone to text Miss Lopez, safe at clinic. Found the father. Both stable. I'll update soon. She added a small heart. It felt right. She sat for a moment in a chair near the vending machine, hands wrapped around the last of the warm water from the plow driver. She watched the snow through the window and let her shoulders drop. The rope lay coiled on the passenger seat, a bright loop of orange against the dark interior, like a circle that kept its promise. She thought about how many times she had told Amir, prepared is better than scared. Tonight, prepared had meant a rope, a blanket, a steady voice, and a choice to step out into the white and search until she found someone who needed to be seen. Across the hall, a nurse waved to her. You can come say hello, she said. Maya stood and walked to the doorway. Eric lay on the hospital bed with warm air moving softly over his face and the color returning to his cheeks. Lily sat in a chair by his side, holding a cup of cocoa with both hands. Eric lifted his gaze and met Maya's eyes. He tried to speak, paused, and then managed 3 clear words. You saved us. Maya shook her head gently. We helped each other, she said. That is how people get through storms. The clinic lights glowed warm against the storm outside. Maya sat in the waiting area, her jacket still damp from snow, watching the doors where Eric and Lily had been taken. Nurses moved quickly through the halls, but their faces were calm, showing that the situation was under control. That steadiness gave her comfort. She wrapped her hands around the last of the plow driver's warm water, letting it sink into her fingers. She thought about Amir, who was still at Miss Lopez's house, safe and probably asking for a second cup of cocoa by now. After a little while, a nurse came out and waved her in. He's stable, she said kindly. You can see him for a moment. Maya followed the nurse down the hall and into a room where Eric lay under blankets with heated air blowing gently across him. The color was slowly coming back to his face. His eyes opened when he heard the door, and he looked first at Lily, then at Maya. Lily sat on a chair, still holding her father's hand. She looked both tired and relieved, her little face glowing in the warm light. Eric's voice was weak but steady. You found me, and you found her. His words were slow, each one pushed out with effort, but they carried deep feeling. Maya gave a small nod. She was so brave. And you kept going, even when it was too much. That's what brought me to you. He looked at her like he was trying to find the right words but couldn't yet. His eyes grew wet, but he blinked it away quickly. A doctor stepped in and explained that Eric would need monitoring overnight. His body temperature had dropped dangerously low, but Maya's quick actions had stopped it from getting worse. Another hour, maybe less, and we'd be looking at frostbite or worse, the doctor said. You saved him from that. Maya didn't smile or glow at the praise, instead, she just looked back at Eric and said, "You're safe now. That's all that matters." After the check, Maya sat with Lily while Eric rested. Lily leaned close to her and whispered, "I thought I lost him. I was so cold." Maya brushed a strand of hair from Lily's face. "You were strong enough to wait. And strong enough to believe he would come back. That's why you're here now." Lily pressed closer, almost like a hug, and whispered, "I'm glad you came." Later, as Maya prepared to leave, Eric insisted on speaking to her again. His voice was stronger now. "I owe you more than I can ever say. If you hadn't stopped, if you hadn't tied that rope, we wouldn't be here." Maya shook her head gently. "I didn't do it for thanks. I just saw someone who needed help." She picked up her scarf and coat, ready to walk back into the night. But before she could step out, Eric asked, "Can I at least walk you to the lobby?" He tried to stand, but the nurse stopped him. He smiled a little at his own weakness. "Then will you come back tomorrow? Just so Lily can see you again." His tone wasn't desperate, but hopeful, as though he wanted to hold on to the person who had turned fear into safety. Maya thought for a moment, then agreed. "I'll come by. She needs to see everything through. It helps children heal." As she left the hospital that night, the storm had eased a little. Snow still lined the streets, but the sky had a softer gray. Her SUV sat quietly under a fresh layer of snow, the orange rope coiled in the passenger seat like a reminder of what had happened. She brushed off the windshield, climbed inside, and started the engine. The heater hummed, the same sound that had kept Lily safe just hours ago. Maya took a deep breath, thinking of how close everything had been, and how sometimes one small decision like stopping for a mitten in the snow could change so many lives. The next day, after her shift, Maya returned to the clinic. She carried a small bag with coloring books and crayons for Lily. When she walked in, Lily's face lit up with joy. "Maya," she said, rushing over and hugging her legs. Eric watched from the bed, his color better, his body stronger. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly. "But thank you." They talked for a while. Eric asked about Maya's life. She told him about Amir, about working at the clinic, about how she was saving slowly to take classes to become a nurse. She didn't share everything, she was private by nature, but she told enough for him to see how much she carried on her own shoulders. He listened carefully, nodding, like every detail mattered. Lily colored in the corner while they spoke, humming to herself. Eric said quietly, "I keep trying to find words for what you did. I don't know if there are any big enough." Maya smiled lightly. "You don't need big words. Just take care of her. That's thanks enough." Before she left again, Eric asked, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Maya shook her head. "No. Just get better. Just be the dad she needs." But even as she said it, Eric's eyes showed he wasn't done thinking about it. Something in him had shifted, not just gratitude, but a deep decision growing. That night, Maya returned home to Amir. He asked about the storm, about the girl she had helped. She told him only the gentle parts, about finding a mitten, about bringing someone to safety. She didn't talk about how heavy Eric had been in the ditch or how sharp the cold had bitten her own skin. She only said, "When someone is lost, we do what we can to bring them home." Amir smiled and nodded like he understood more than his years. In the days that followed, as the roads cleared and life returned to normal, Maya thought often about that night. She thought about Lily's small hand clutching the blanket, about Eric's pale face in the snow, about how close they had been to being gone forever. She thought about how thin the line between life and loss could be, and how sometimes that line was nothing more than a rope tied to a car door and a choice not to look away. But what she didn't know yet was that Eric had not forgotten a single detail. While she returned to her work and her son, grateful to move forward quietly, Eric was already planning something bigger. Something that would not only thank her, but also change her life and the lives of many others. Would you like me to continue part 4 in the same expanded, 1,300-word simple English style, building up to the transformation Eric brings into Maya's life? The storm passed, and the little mountain town slowly returned to normal. Roads cleared, schools reopened, and people went back to work. But for Maya, the memory of that night stayed sharp in her mind. Every time she saw the orange rope in her SUV, she remembered how close everything had been: the mitten in the snow, the heavy pull of Eric's body from the ditch, the look on Lily's face when she realized her dad was safe again. She carried on with her shifts at the clinic, cooked meals for Amir, and kept life steady, but deep inside she felt something had shifted. She had done what anyone should do, yet she knew not everyone would have stopped in that storm. 1 week later, Maya was finishing her shift when the receptionist at the clinic called her name. "Maya, someone's waiting for you in the lobby." She wiped her hands, curious. When she stepped out, she saw Eric and Lily standing near the chairs. Lily's face broke into a wide smile as soon as she spotted her. "Maya," she called, running forward with something clutched in her hands. It was a folded card, covered in crayon drawings of snowflakes and a little SUV with bright yellow lights. Inside, written in shaky letters, were the words, "Thank you for finding us. Love, Lily." Maya knelt down and hugged her. "This is beautiful, Lily. I'll keep it forever." She looked up at Eric. He looked healthier now. His skin had color, his hands were wrapped in good gloves, and his eyes carried gratitude that seemed deeper than words. "I wanted to thank you properly," he said. "Not just with words. Could we take you and Amir out for dinner? My treat." At first, Maya wanted to say no. She wasn't used to taking help, not even small kindnesses. But she saw how important it was for Lily, and how sincere Eric's offer was. "All right," she said gently. "But somewhere simple." That weekend, they met at a family diner. Amir and Lily got along quickly, laughing over French fries and trading stories about school. Maya watched them with a soft smile while Eric told her more about himself. He explained that he was the owner of Northline Logistics, a regional company that managed trucks and warehouses across the county. He had built it from the ground up after years of driving trucks himself. Maya was surprised. She had thought of him only as a father, not as someone with power or money. "I've been thinking a lot about that night," he said seriously, lowering his voice. "What you did saved us. But it also showed me something, how unprepared most of us are for storms like that. If you hadn't had that rope, that blanket, those supplies," he paused, shaking his head. "It could have ended differently. And that's not right. People shouldn't depend on luck. They should have what they need before trouble comes." Maya nodded slowly. "I only bought that kit a little at a time. Most families can't spend extra on things they might never use. They spend on what they need today." "Exactly," Eric said. "And that's why I want to do something. Not just for me, not just for you, but for the whole community." He pulled out a folder he had brought along. Inside were papers, charts, and a rough plan. He explained an idea he had been working on, a program called Warm Roads, Warm Hearts. It would provide emergency kits for hundreds of families, set up warming rooms in public places, and train volunteers in basic winter safety. "And I want you to run it," Eric said, looking directly at Maya. Maya blinked in surprise. "Me?" "Yes," Eric said firmly. "You're the one who knows what it looks like in the real world. You didn't just read about how to help, you lived it. You stayed calm, you made the right choices, and you saved lives. That's exactly the kind of person this needs. Maya hesitated. She had never been offered anything like this before. She was just a nursing assistant, working her shifts and saving slowly for nursing school. She had Amir to think of, bills to pay. I don't know, she said softly. I already work long hours. And I don't want to be in charge of something so big. Eric leaned forward, his tone both respectful and insistent. I'm not asking as a favor. This would be a real job. Paid. With flexible hours so you can still study and be with your son. I'll use my company's trucks and resources to back you. But the face of this, what people will trust, should be you. Because you've already proven what it means. Maya sat quietly for a long time. Lily and Amir were laughing at the other end of the booth, drawing silly faces on napkins. She thought of how many parents, just like her, drove old cars in winter storms with no blanket or rope in the trunk. She thought of how a little preparation had saved Lily and Eric. Maybe it could save others too. Finally, she looked at Eric and nodded. If I do this, it has to be honest. No hidden strings. The community must be involved. It's not about my name or yours. It's about people helping people. Eric's face broke into a genuine smile. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. From that day on, plans moved quickly. Eric brought in his company team to handle the big logistics, ordering supplies in bulk, organizing transport, setting up spaces at local churches and libraries. Maya worked with neighbors, teachers, and even the fire department to make sure the program matched real needs. Together they built the kits, blankets, flashlights, water bottles, hand warmers, simple first aid items, and reflective triangles. Word spread fast. Families who once felt alone in storms now had a place to turn. The local paper wrote a story about the program, though Maya tried to stay in the background. Still, people began to recognize her. At the grocery store, at the clinic, neighbors would stop to thank her. You're making us safer, one mother told her, holding her baby close. Maya smiled shyly, always saying, we're doing this together. At home, Amir watched proudly as his mom balanced her clinic work with her new role. You're like a hero, he said one night. Maya laughed softly and pulled him close. No, I'm just someone who stopped when I saw a mitten. Eric and Lily became part of their lives, too. Lily and Amir grew close like siblings, often playing in the snow while Maya and Eric talked about the next steps of the program. Sometimes Eric shared business advice, sometimes he just listened. Over time, trust grew between them, not because of money or titles, but because of what they had survived together. Maya still didn't think of herself as extraordinary. But one evening, when she stood at a community hall handing out winter kits, she looked around at all the families smiling with relief, children hugging blankets, and neighbors talking about how they would check on each other next storm. In that moment, she understood what Eric had meant. Her choice to stop that night had become the seed of something much bigger. And though she didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning of how Eric's decision and his gratitude would change her life and her son's future in ways she never imagined. 1 year later, the same town looked different when winter came again. The blizzard that had once been a nightmare had become a story people now told with pride, because out of that storm came a program that touched hundreds of lives. Everywhere in the community, people carried car emergency kits with blankets, flashlights, flares, and water. Warming stations were set up at the church, the library, and even in one corner of the community center. The program, Warm Roads, Warm Hearts, was now part of the town's daily language, and the face of it, though she never wanted the spotlight, was Maya Johnson. That evening, as snow began to fall again, Maya stood in the large hall of the community center. Rows of families sat on folding chairs, listening to her speak in her calm, steady voice. Storms don't wait until we are ready, she said, holding up one of the bright orange ropes like the one she had used that night. But we can be prepared. One blanket in the trunk, one flashlight with fresh batteries, one rope that ties us back to safety, it all matters. She showed the kid piece by piece, explaining each item in simple language. Parents nodded, children leaned forward, and even teenagers who usually looked bored were paying attention. Amir helped hand out checklists at the back of the room, proud to be part of his mother's work. Lily, now more confident and playful, pinned a paper snowflake she had made onto the bulletin board titled "People Who Helped Me Feel Safe." On it were names of volunteers, neighbors, and even teachers who had joined the program. At the very top of the board, in Lily's careful handwriting, was Maya's name. Eric stood quietly in the back of the hall, watching with a thoughtful smile. He no longer looked like the man Maya had pulled from the snow. His strength had returned, but what stood out most was how he had poured his energy into supporting this new cause. He had used his company's trucks to deliver supplies during storms, hired extra drivers to check on senior citizens, and made sure warming rooms were stocked before the first snowflake fell. Yet he never tried to take the credit. He let Maya and the community shine. After the presentation, people came forward to thank her. One elderly woman said, "Because of this program, my grandson knew how to help me when the power went out. He had a blanket and flashlight ready." Another man explained how his car had broken down in the snow, but the kit in his trunk kept him and his daughter safe until help arrived. Each story reminded Maya of why this mattered, not because she had once saved 2 people, but because now many more families could save each other. When the crowd began to leave, Eric stepped forward. "You did well," he said quietly, handing her a cup of hot tea from the refreshment table. She smiled, shaking her head. "I just talk about what I know. The real work is everyone listening and using it." Eric nodded. "That's true. But you gave them someone to believe. That changes everything." Maya looked around at the hall. Children were laughing as they folded the chairs, parents were sharing notes, and volunteers were carrying boxes of supplies. A year ago, she had felt alone against the storm. Tonight, she felt surrounded by a web of people who all wanted the same thing: safety, warmth, and care for each other. Later that evening, Maya walked outside. Snow drifted gently in the streetlights, soft and calm instead of fierce and frightening. She pulled her scarf tighter and stood still for a moment, remembering the rope at her waist, the sound of the storm, and the pale face she had found in the ditch. She thought of how close life and loss had been that night, and how, because she had chosen to stop, so much had grown from it. Eric joined her quietly, his breath rising in the cold air. "Funny thing about storms," he said. "They can destroy, or they can build. That night could have taken everything from me. Instead, it gave me a reason to give more." Maya nodded, her voice soft but steady. "Sometimes, all it takes is one choice. One mitten in the snow." Inside, Amir and Lily were still laughing, chasing each other around the tables. Their joy filled the hall with warmth that no storm could take away. Maya watched them, and her heart felt both full and light. She knew life would not always be easy. She still worked long hours at the clinic, still saved for her nursing classes, still faced days of exhaustion. But now she also had a community behind her, and a friend in Eric who had kept his promise, not just to thank her, but to make sure her kindness changed more than just 2 lives. As the night ended, a reporter from the local paper approached. "This program has cut emergency calls in half," she said. "People say you're a hero." Maya smiled faintly, shaking her head. "I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who saw a mitten and didn't walk away. The real heroes are all the people here who carry these kits, check on neighbors, and open warming rooms. That's what saves lives." The reporter wrote down her words, but Maya didn't stay for pictures. Instead, she walked back to Amir, took his hand, and said, "Ready to go home?" He grinned and nodded. Lily waved, and Eric gave a quiet smile as they left. At home, Maya hung the crayon card Lily had given her on the wall near the kitchen. The little SUV with glowing lights reminded her every day that small actions can shine brightest in the darkest storms. She poured Amir some warm milk, tucked him into bed, and sat by the window for a moment longer, watching the snow fall gently outside. And as she closed her eyes, she knew one thing clearly: storms would always come, but now, because of one brave night and one choice to stop, her town would never face them alone again.